Section 1. In this section, you will hear a conversation between Rachel and Caesar. They are discussing a field trip for the following week. First, you will have some time to read questions 1 to 10. You will see that there is an example which has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hi, Caesar. How are you?
Good, thanks, Rachel. I'm fine. I was going to ring you tonight, so it's a good thing I've run into you. I wanted to remind you about the field trip, the 2-day field trip next week. Caesar wanted to remind Rachel about the field trip next week, so next week is provided in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
Hi, Caesar. How are you?
Good, thanks, Rachel. I'm fine. I was going to ring you tonight, so it's a good thing I've run into you. I wanted to remind you about the field trip, the 2-day field trip next week.
What field trip?
The geography field trip to the Warragamba Dam and the water treatment plant. It's a compulsory part of the first year environmental science course. Didn't you know about it?
No, I must have missed that piece of information. This is news to me. But give me the details, please.
Sure. Well, we have to meet outside the library next Monday at 7 in the morning, or you can meet us at 7:45 at the bus station in time to catch the coach, which departs at 8 o'clock.
Oh, all right. And how long does it take to get to this place?
Well, once we're on the coach, it will take about 2 hours. No, actually more like 2.5 hours at that time of day. And it could take as long as 3 hours to come back the next day because of the evening traffic.
And what's the purpose of the trip?
Didn't you get the course outline? You don't seem to know anything about this course.
Well, remember, I only started at the university a month ago, so I joined the course 2 weeks late, and I've been trying to catch up ever since.
Oh, of course. Well, we spend the first day visiting the dam. I believe we actually go inside the wall of the dam, which is really quite interesting, to see the dam functioning, you know, how much they regulate the water supply each day, depending on how much water is needed downstream in Sydney.
Oh, okay. And, so if this is a 2-day trip, where are we staying? Not camping by the dam, I hope?
No, not camping. They do actually have some overnight cabins near the dam for visiting groups, but we're spending the night in a youth hostel in a town nearby. That's all been arranged by the university.
And what about meals? Should we take our own food along?
No, you won't need to do that. The hostel provides 2 meals, breakfast and an evening meal, and we can find a cheap place to buy lunch.
Great. So, is this the only dam that supplies water for Sydney?
There are a couple of others too, but this is the main one.
Well, with a population of over 4.5 million people, I suppose we do use thousands of litres each day.
Absolutely. In fact, according to my notes here, they pump the water through something like 20,000 kilometres of pipes and canals and store the water in 262 service reservoirs. And each day we use enough water to fill 600 Olympic swimming pools. Now you will have another chance to look at questions 8 to 10. As the conversation continues, answer questions 8 to 10.
And what's happening on the second day?
Well, we're coming back to town and going to the water treatment plant to see how they purify the water for drinking.
Oh, that should actually be quite interesting. I'll bring my camera.
Yes, that's a good idea, because we're supposed to include original photos for the final piece of work at the end of the course. And make sure you bring a notebook and pen or pencil.
OK, I'll do that.
You'll probably need some good walking shoes and spare clothes too, and I would recommend that you bring a waterproof coat of some sort, because the chances of it raining are pretty good next week. And a hat, perhaps.
Sorry, no. I draw the line at a hat.
Fair enough. And by the way, do you have a mobile phone?
I do, actually.
Well, bring that along, because that way we can keep in touch more easily.
Provided that mobiles work up there, of course.
That's a point.
Do I need a map?
No, I wouldn't bother. We won't need to do any map reading.
OK then. See you on Monday, and thanks very much for letting me know.
That is the end of Section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 2. Section 2. You will hear an extract from a radio program called Consumer's Choice, which gives advice to consumers on how to make complaints. First, you will have some time to look at questions 11 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15. Hello everyone! Welcome again to Consumer's Choice, which is the last in our present series. Isn't that right, Wendy?
Yes, that's right. But we'll be back again after summer break with a new series. We'll tell you more about that later. But first, in today's programme, we start off with the missing photographs. We'll tell you a story of Miss Patty Ching, one of our listeners. We'll tell you how she has qualified for our Consumer of the Month award with her determination. Dennis?
Thank you, Wendy. Well, Miss Patty Ching went on a holiday to Europe last month. This was her first ever trip abroad, and one for which she'd been saving for 10 years. Her tour took her around 12 countries in 21 days, and being a keen photographer, she took lots of photographs. 10 rolls of film, to be exact. About 360 photographs. When Patty got back home, she gave all her photos to top-class photo services for developing, and they vanished. She never saw them again. Of course, she was furious with the company and complained. They apologized and offered her compensation, 10 free rolls of film. This made her even more angry, and she rejected this completely inadequate offer and asked for $2,000. The company refused her request, so Patty wrote them a letter telling them to pay up in 10 days or she would take them to court. She received no reply, so she did take them to court. But 2 days before the case was due to be heard, she received a check for $2,000. Top Class had obviously made their minds up on how the judge would decide. Patty's case provides a lesson to all of us. If we want our rights as consumers, we've got to fight for them. So for her determination and spirit, we name Patty our Consumer of the Month. Now you will have another chance to look at questions 16 to 20. As the conversation continues, answer questions 16 to 20.
Thank you, Dennis. And now I'd like to deal with the problem that many of our listeners write about: sale prices. When we go to a sale and see a sign on something saying 50% off or $300 reduced to $100, how do we know the prices really have been reduced? One of our listeners, Mr. Alvin Locke, tells his story. In a department store where I sometimes shopped, I saw a leather belt priced at $100. Too expensive for me, but I liked it and thought I might buy it next time the store had a sale. The store did have a sale, and I went back to look for the belt. It was there all right, but the ticket on it now read $200 reduced to $150. The sale price was actually higher than the normal price. What can we as consumers do in a case like this? The answer to Alvin's question is that, at the moment, all we can do is to complain to the store's management and bring these cases to the attention of the public. Bad publicity might help to put a stop to this dishonest practice. Of course, making a fuss about faulty goods or bad service is never easy. Most people dislike making a fuss. But if something you have bought is faulty or does not do what was claimed for it, you are not asking for a favour to get it right. It is the shopkeeper's responsibility to take the complaint seriously and to replace or repair a faulty article or put right poor service, because he is the person with whom you have entered into an agreement. The manufacturer may have a part to play, but that comes later. So it's quite proper and reasonable to make a complaint about faulty goods or bad service.
Well, Wendy, what do you think is the right way to do that?
Well, the most important thing about making complaints, I think, is that they should be made to a responsible person in authority. Go back to the shop where you bought the goods, taking with you any receipt you may have. Ask to see the shop assistant in a large store. In a small store, the assistant may also be the owner, or you can complain directly. In a chain store, ask to see the manager. If you telephone, ask the name of the person who handles your inquiry, otherwise you may never find out who dealt with the complaint later. Even the bravest person finds it difficult to stand up in a group of people to complain. So, if you do not want to do it in person, write a letter. Stick to the facts and keep a copy of what you write. At this stage, you should give any receipt numbers, but you should not need to give receipts or other papers to prove you get. Or, if you do not get a reply, write to the managing director of the firm, shop or organisation. Be sure to keep copies of your own letters and any you receive.
Well, thank you for your good advice. It's nice for every consumer to take an action when he or she gets bad goods or service. And of course, the consumer's choice will continue to press for the government to bring in laws to those in other countries to protect consumers by making it illegal to cheat them in this way. And now I'd like to tell you about our new consumer hotline, which came into operation last month. So far, we have received. That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers.